Welcome to episode 65 in our Let's Play series. Sorry, this is a little bit late. The child is still resisting bedtime. She's lying right next to me right now, so hopefully she'll cooperate during the recording of this episode. Today we are going to work some more on our autopilot, so I'm going to hop out of my couch here and head over to the cargo shuttle. Our coding sitting in here. The priority today is going to be on disabling the autopilot properly, because as we saw last time, it will stop adding new missions, but it will keep the gyros locked, and if we were keeping track of thrusters, those would be turned on still. And we're also going to focus on at least inventorying the thrusters, even if we don't necessarily get around to using them. So we're going to borrow this part of the code, basically. And we are going to do gyro dot, what is it, gyro override? Yeah. Turn that off. Set that to 0. Set that to 0. Set that to 0. So that's the gyros handled. We'll go ahead and do this too. Oh, this is more complicated because this is in a dictionary. Directions. What's that one called? Thrusters. So the key here is the direction, but we don't care what the direction is at this point because we're just resetting everything to off. So we want the value, which is a list of thrusters. So for each thruster in the list, I don't remember what it's called. Give me 1 second to look that up. Of course, my browser is going to lag because I'm trying to get it to do two things at once. Come on, browser. You can do it. I believe in you. Yeah, it's off. It's kind of annoying, huh? Commentary from a child. I really need a new system. Valley. I might thrust. Gets or sets the thrust override. No, it's just thrust override is what it's called. And this isn't a true-false thing plus a setting. This is just the setting. So we will do thruster. Where'd it go? Thruster dot. Yeah, it's back on. Thrust override. Now, if you do thrust override, it's in newtons. If you do thrust override percentage, it's a percentage of the total. We're just setting it to 0, though, so it doesn't really matter which one we do. And I don't actually need this to be the whole in brackets thing. I don't really need this one either. Alright, so for each direction, get the list. Yeah, it's back on. For each thruster in the list, set the thrust override to 0. I think that's all we'll ever actually need to do, because this is just resetting everything. Let me see if there's anything else in here that I'm forgetting about. Nope, that's it. Because we're updating the display already here. Where we update the mission. We could move that. That would be more consistent. So yeah, we'll move that down into here. Alright, so there's that. Now this is a little trickier, because the gyros, we are determining their direction when we're actually using them here, where we where is it? Transform the vector. So we're transforming it based on the particular gyro's direction. In this case, however, we're going to be looking to get the entire list of thrusters for each direction when we update autopilot here, where we're surveying our blocks basically.
Sit back on. Sit back on.
So we need to start by creating a list of thrusters, because we're going to create a list for each direction, but we need to use the get blocks of type to start this all off. We are, as usual, going to be doing all of our actual work in the filter method, but we need a list just temporarily to pass in here. going to call this block because it actually does get passed in as a block. And then I'm going to cast it here.
That's a wall.
If I can spell things. It's actually IMI thrust is the name of the data type, not IMI thruster. And I'm not going to bother doing that if it's not connected. No way.
Birds.
Yeah, it's birds.
Mouse.
Yep, that's a mouse. This child is not even a little bit tired. And eventually down here we'll return true just because. Alright. Now, at one point when I was doing this transform vector stuff,
Or spear.
yeah, I had figured out how to figure out what the orientation of an engine or what the gyro was relative to the ship. But I think I replaced all that code.
Birds.
Yeah, it's a bird. So none of that is in here right now.
Birds near.
I'm going to have to figure that out again.
Mouse near. Mouse near.
Yeah, there's a mouse in there.
Those eyes. Those eyes. Those eyes. Those eyes. Those eyes. Those eyes.
Uh-huh. Let me see if I can figure this out here.
They're
Oh,
off.
grid thrust direction is a thing.
Ah.
That's helpful.
They're off.
And that's a vector.
They're off. They're off.
Yeah, it's off. I'm going to turn it back on right now, though.
They're back on.
So grid thrust direction.
They're back on.
Yeah, it's back on. So instead of orientation, we're going to use grid thrust direction, which returns a vector relative to the cockpit.
Those eyes.
Yeah.
Mouse near.
Now the issue is we're going to have to figure out how to convert that vector into a direction.
See those eyes. Those eyes.
Maybe there is a convenient and easy way to do that.
That's just it.
Uh-huh.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
I will.
Because the orientation is still a thing. Is there something that takes in a vector? No, there is not. How about from the world matrix instead? orientation from the matrix. Create from direction. I don't think that's what I want. Yeah, because that returns me a matrix.
So good. So good.
Uh-huh.
So good.
Get
So
closest
good.
direction from
So
a vector.
good.
I think that's the one I want.
So good.
Let's try that one. Although that is not static. Hey, careful with that. Don't pull it out. Hey, hey, hey. Don't pull on that. You're going to ruin your book. Alright, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to try this. All done.
So done.
Basics. Directions. Dot. Direction. Orientation. Equals autopilot. Controller. Dot. World. Matrix. Dot. What was that method called? I forgot already. Get closest direction. Get closest direction from thruster dot grid thrust vector. It's probably want me to cast something. Oh, and it's gonna have a whole bunch of issues. 171, 7.1. Does not contain a definition for grid thrust vector. Isn't that what I just looked at? Grid thrust direction is what it's called. Help if I use the right variable names.
This is fun.
Oh yeah?
It's fun.
Yeah, it's buttons.
Many buttons.
Another button.
Many buttons.
Another button.
What? Take it. I don't.
Alright, I've screwed up parentheses and stuff somewhere here. It's probably down here.
Inbound.
Oh, no semicolon there, that's a problem. Command does not exist in the current context.
Buttons.
Bye buttons. Oh, that's the problem.
Bye mouse.
I didn't pass in the command
Say
here.
bye mouse.
Yeah, bye mouse. I'm not sure if this is really necessary, seeing as how I'm
Go. Go.
not reliant on anything in the commands. I could just move that back out. But again, consistency.
Go.
Oh, it's just my command line. It's not my command line. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so now this should show me all my thrusters. Up. Backward.
Stable.
Down.
Down. Down. Sit up.
Uh-huh.
Sit buttons. Sit buttons.
Alright, so thruster 1
Sit
is
buttons.
actually left, and it says it's
Sit
up.
buttons.
So that's a problem. Alright, so what if I ignore the whole get thrust direction thing? instead try to use a different method here. Well, first of all, this is not helpful. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Now the world matrix also has vectors on it.
Mommy, cars.
Yeah, it's a card. And those are just named up, down, whatever.
What?
I'm not sure which one I want though.
What? What?
I mean, I guess I'll just look around until I find the right one.
What? What? What?
Wap, whatever that means.
What?
Uh-huh.
Daddy.
Yeah, it's daddy's. Forward. Alright, let's see if this returns the right stuff. If it's forward. Thruster 1 says right, whereas in actual fact it is left. Thruster 10 says forward, when in actual fact it is backwards. So it looks like we just need the other one.
Bye.
And it'll be right. I'm not entirely sure I understand why it's right, but it'll be right. Ow. Ow. Can you not lean on me with your book in your hand? Thank you. Alright, so now thruster 1 is left. Thruster 1 is left. Thruster 2 is down, down. 3 is right, right. 4 is up, up. 5 is forward, forward. Yeah. So it looks like these are right now. Again, I'm not 100% sure I understand the reasoning why. But basically what's happening here is if it's not connected, we bail because that's not important. Cast it to a thruster so that we have access to all the thruster properties and methods. Even though it looks like the block would be sufficient here so far. And we're getting the custom name, which so we can identify things and know which one's which. And the orientation here is the autopilot controller's world matrix. So we're basing it on the autopilot controller, comparing it to that. Get the closest direction of the thruster and what it considers to be backward, which I guess is just where the exhaust is pointing is back. Alright, so that's fine. I can work with that. So now if thrusters dot keys dot contains orientation thrusters orientation add thruster else thrusters orientation is a new list by my thrust thrusters orientation add thruster. So if the thrusters already has the direction, a list for the direction that we're going, just add to that list. And I need to close my square brackets there. If it doesn't, then create a list and add it to that one.
Wouldn't it be?
So that should do it. Although there's not really any way for me to prove it here, so let's see if we can do something about that. Else if command type argument 1 to upper
Wow.
equals, what should this command be? Got orient and lock.
Time. This phone was. Guys. Oh,
She's talking on her phone now.
God.
Speaking to an important client, no doubt.
God. God.
It's just thrust. Because fly 2 is going to be a little different. Now the issue is that we need to orient first and then wait until we're oriented. And we're also going to have to pass in the wrong stuff. The wrong command. Yeah, this is starting to get complicated to implement this test. And the episode's super late already as it is. So I'm going to work a little bit on this off camera, I think, and try to figure out what I want to do exactly. It might involve setting up a command queue. But I'm going to go ahead and release this as it is for now. So yeah, the crux of this episode was getting the disable to work properly and actually disable things, and to at least survey our thrusters and figure out what was what. We can turn off these echoes because these are not necessary. So we've at least found the thrusters and put them in the right list for the right direction, at least as far as we know, and set up the disable to properly disable. So I'm gonna try to get her in bed again, do a little bit of work on this and see if I can figure out what we're doing, and then we will be back next time to have it actually shoot us off in the direction that we want to go instead of just pointing us there. So subscribe to see that. Likes, comments, and verbal abuse are welcome. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Nana shake.